Take a move in the ring. You can hit me with the words you fling.
Why don't we move on? Yeah. So Masvidal, Jorge Masvidal has also been talking about Kamaru Usman because it looks like Usman is now trying to get a fight with Conor McGregor because Masvidal is trying to get a rematch with Nate Diaz because he obviously sees more money in it there. And he blamed the negotiations for the title fight with Usman falling apart because of Usman having insane demands for money, absurd demands, he called it. What do you make of this?
We don't know. We have no idea, but I could believe it. Look at who his manager is. His manager is Ali, and who just recently retired because they're not getting paid enough, and wanted more, much more. Henry Cejudo, who's his manager? Ali. It's the same manager, right? But if it's true, I'm glad it's true because Usman deserves more money. I'm from now on, from years ago, I always promoted that fighters should negotiate if they have the power. And I think on the Joe Rogan podcast, Justin Gaethje referred to that. Like when you're in that position, you need to take the power that you have and try to use it against the UFC and get as much as you can out of them because it's not going to be there forever. And that's what Usman's doing right now. So if the negotiation fell apart, hey, go fight McGregor. Why not? That's where you're gonna get your money from, not fighting Jorge.
He says, yeah, the criticism that Masvidal had for Usman was that nobody knows you. So that's how he put it. I guess, yeah, Usman doesn't have a mainstream reach, and he used some numbers. He said, I had the biggest pay-per-view of 2019, that BMF fight with Nate Diaz at Madison Square Garden, UFC 244. And he said, you had the weakest card of the year, UFC 245 in Vegas in December. And he said, you should have had a lot more pay-per-view buys out of that because you had a brilliant undercard. You had Amanda Nunes on there, and you had Holloway and Volkanovski, 3 title fights, but the pay-per-view still flopped because of you. That's what Masvidal said to Usman. Is that fair criticism? And does that mean Usman should probably accept a lower number?
It is fair criticism, but should Usman accept a lower number? Absolutely not. He's the champ. You're fighting the champion. The champion should not get less money than the challenger. That makes no sense. And I know it's prize fighting, and I know it's about who moves the needle, but Jorge moves the needle, So if Jorge moves the needle and he's the title challenger, that's who Usman wants to fight. Give him the money, and let's get that show on the road. Because if you're gonna sit there and delay because of money, then of course you're gonna move on. That's what Usman is talking about, right? He's like, if I'm not gonna get the money I want to fight Jorge, then I'm gonna go fight McGregor because that's guaranteed money, and I understand that.
Yeah, it all seems to be a power play, doesn't it? And I think Masvidal knows McGregor's probably not going to fight Usman, so that leaves Usman with who? Leon Edwards, right? Not going to make much money on that. More respect to Leon, he's a fighter, but again, not a big name.
So it's gonna go back to Jorge eventually. If he doesn't sign the contract that they offer and he goes over and tries to fight McGregor, and McGregor doesn't want to fight him, but I think McGregor would fight him though. That's the thing, because it's an opportunity to go after the third title in the third weight division that he fights in, which is welterweight. That's an insane opportunity. Why would you pass that up? And you're gonna get paid the same as you would if you're gonna fight anywhere else. Man, Usman, I hope he does get McGregor. Why not? You know what I mean? Like that's a major fight, and for him to be able to fight McGregor and get the payday that he deserves, even if he loses, it doesn't matter. He's gonna get like great wealth from it. So it's so crazy, like how McGregor changes the scope of that division.
But would it be any different, say, if McGregor comes in and challenges him? Usman is gonna ask for bigger paycheck again, and UFC is going to say no, maybe, just like with Masvidal. Does it make any difference?
I think it does make a difference because it's McGregor, and McGregor is going to draw so much more than Masvidal will ever imagine that he could draw, and they're just going to give him the number above what is the lowest number that they've been offering him for for the Masvidal fight, and then he'll take it, right? And it's probably going to be a decent chunk of change. Yeah, so I think the UFC would fork over some money to Usman because he does hold the belt, and giving McGregor this opportunity to hold another belt, man, and be in the history books. The UFC would love that. They love McGregor.
Yeah, and it's win-win for George, isn't it? Because say he goes and fights Nate, and then Conor fights Usman in hypothetical world. Say Conor beats Usman, then Masvidal v Conor is 10 times the fight that Masvidal v Usman is in terms of money for George.
Perfect. It's a perfect scenario for Jorge if he doesn't take this fight against for the Usman, and Usman fights McGregor. McGregor beats Usman. McGregor holds the belt. Jorge Masvidal goes and beats Nate. They fight. Man, it will be one of the biggest fights in the history of this new era that we're in, where the trash talk is at insane levels. And imagine the trash talk that's gonna happen when those two guys eventually clash. But then you always still have Kobe there. That's the crazy part too. You just can't forget about him. He's not the odd man out, and Jorge might fight him, because he already beat Nate. You know what I mean? I know that's a money fight, but he already beat Nate, and I don't think that there's too much interest. I feel like the interest is in that Colby fight. There's a lot of grudge there. There's a lot of history, and they could build that fight pretty insane. And imagine the press conferences. It's going to be like John Jones, DC level. Like, they're going to fight each other, I think, if they see each other. That's because Jorge, he's not going to back down. He pieced up Leon Edwards, and he was just talking trash from afar. Imagine like how much animosity Jorge has on Colby Covington. I'm excited for that one. I love this.
Yeah. And you think George probably knows the Nate fight. It's probably another win. He can go make a lot of money in the meantime and see how things play out, right? And there's just enough of a little bit of a question mark with the doctor stoppage to make it worth doing this fight again. I think you can argue that, and obviously Nate Diaz argued it was BS that the doctor stopped it, and he was just warming up. He was going to come into his own in the 4th and 5th rounds. And then they did trash talk a little bit after the fight in the month or two after. So I think this time, if they did rematch, you're going to see a different build-up because they were very respectful, weren't they, in the first instance? But I think this time they're smart guys, and they would know, all right, let's insult each other this time and then build some pay-per-view buys. And I think it would still do well, wouldn't it?
Oh, it would do well. But the thing about that fight is Nate is in a position where it's very similar to the position that he's in with McGregor. Like, McGregor always has that fight in his back pocket. And now Jorge always has this fight against Nate in his back pocket. So Nate could sit out another, I don't even know how long he's going to sit out. He keeps on sitting out for all these long periods of time, and people still want to see him fight. Of course, it's great. But I don't see Jorge going after Nate, unless it's like the last option on the list of options that he has. I feel like he would rather fight Colby. He would rather fight Usman or McGregor, or I think like those 3 fights are the top 3 fights, and Nate would be the last option. And then there's always the Leon Edwards too, hanging around, like he's in the back behind the fence, peeking his eyes over the fence, like, hey guys, I'm over here, right? And I feel bad for him. Out of this whole situation, I feel bad for Leon most.
Yeah, Leon actually called out Kamaru Usman on Twitter. Well, he wasn't called out. He said, yeah, if no one wants to fight you, I'm here. Let's do it. As you said, though, yeah, Colby's there. Maybe Colby leaving ATT's gym is an indicator that they're going to fight Masvidal. Who knows? There's a lot of dominoes to fall, aren't there, in this welterweight division. So I guess we'll just see how it plays out in the next week or two.